I'm Sharice, and today I'm going to be showing you 4 hip-hop moves that you can dance to your favorite song. Alright, let's get started with the 4 moves. So, the first one I'm going to show you guys is called the Biz Marquee. So, we go. Hands are out, and up, and up. Hey, hop, hey, hop. So, with your feet now, when your hands go out, you're going to hop. Hop to one side, hands go up. Hop to the other side, go up. That's it. Hey, and up, hey, and up, hey, and up. Last one, hey, and up. Awesome, that one's the Biz Marquee. So, next one I'm going to show you is called the Bart Simpson, similar to the Simpsons. So, this one goes, hey, up, hey, up, hey, up, hey, up. Think of like a goalpost with your arms this way, and your hands just go to the side, and up, side, and up. Now with your lower body, you go to the opposite direction of your hands, and up. Slide, and up. Slide, and up. Slide, and up. To jazz it out a little bit, think of your knees going into the direction that you're going towards. So I'm going this way, my knees go this way, and up. Hey, and up. That's it. And hey, and up a little faster. Hey, 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 that's it. Last 2. Last one, boom, that's the Bart Simpson. The third one I am showing you guys today is called the walk. So hands just step like this, and we go down for a count. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, bring it up, 2, 3. Body goes side to side. Hands go side to side as well. And up, 2, 3, and 4. That is the walk. The last one I'm showing you here today is called the Gucci. Just like my friend, you might already know. So, one hand here, we go to the side. So yeah, that's basically the Gucci. If you don't want to hop, you can step side to side like this. You can go step side to side. Add a little room to it with your shoulders. Or, you can go brush shoulders off. And that's it! So those are 4 hip-hop moves that you can do to your favorite dance song.
Hello CIS, welcome back from the breakout sessions. That video you all just saw was a great example of video resources and physical activity videos that are available from our partners at Box. You can find those and other mindfulness moment prompts from the Contentment Foundation on the wellness room, in the wellness room on the event platform. So check that out. Also, as a reminder, the sessions you saw today, the breakout sessions, the main stage sessions, will be recorded and available in that platform until March 31st. So come back and either go back into what you saw before and you were interested in it, or check out a breakout session you weren't able to participate in. Okay, so to close out day 2, we're really excited to close out our theme about mindfulness today. This week is as much about learning as it is about connecting and supporting yourselves. And so to help us with that, we are very excited to welcome to the Student Supports Institute stage, Contentment Foundation's Chief Implementation Officer, Dr. Asheena Baez. Asheena is the mindfulness leadership coach, a curriculum developer, and educational consultant. And she's here today to share a presentation on cultivating a culture of compassion. I think that's a great start for us today. And so without further ado, Dr. Asheena Baez.
I want to welcome you to an amazing session. My name, as mentioned, is Dr. Asheena Baez, and I'm the Chief Implementation Officer for the Contentment Foundation. The work that I do is really to infuse the idea that indestructible well-being is a birthright to all humanity. So I have the wonderful opportunity to travel all across the world to spread this message, but also to work with teachers, site coordinators, administrators, parents, and even students to really prioritize their well-being. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into this session. We're ready for the next slide. For our agenda today, family, we have begun with a welcome. We're going to engage in what's called a mindful moment. I was so excited to hear Michael speak to you about mindfulness. So many of you have been exposed to what mindfulness is. So you'll get an absolute taste from me. We also will be looking at a platform overview and our family's app. We're going to engage in a process called hopes and fears that really allows us to look at what could be dormant inside of us. We'll then look at how we deconstruct our fears. We'll close with some next steps, and then we'll talk a little bit about a well-being survey. So without further ado, we will continue. Michael, if possible, are you able to mute your screen? Just there's some feedback from you. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to get started. So we're ready for the next slide so that we can begin our mindful moment. Before then, we're going to just be able to get our minds and our hearts in the right space. To do so, I'm going to ask that we create a personal intention. Intentions are very different than rules and even expectations. An intention is an internal promise that you make with yourself to create the capacity of being centered and focused. So for today, family, we're going to ask that you just listen to this quote. And I want you to, for a moment, just think about a word that describes one emotion, one feeling that you want to feel as we engage in today's session. So quietly just set your intention in your mind before we begin our mindful moment. Now that you've identified the emotion that you want to feel, we are ready to engage in our mindful breath. So we're ready for our next slide, and we're going to, and getting ready for our mindful breath, let's just make sure we have all of our last moments of stretching out. So if you want to roll your shoulders a bit, if you want to roll your neck, just get comfortable in your body. We'll be ready for our next slide. Okay, family. Allow us to sit in a way that makes us feel comfortable and confident. We're going to allow our feet to just melt into the ground beneath us. At this time, we'll allow our hands to just simply rest in our laps. We're going to close our eyes, and we will begin our mindful breath. As we breathe naturally and normally, pay attention as each inhale simply turns into an exhale. At this time, I want you to remind yourself that there is no other place you need to be. There is nothing else that you need to do. You are exactly in the right place at the right time. As you breathe naturally and normally, we are going to prepare for what we call 3 communal breaths. Our breaths today, family, are going to center on the focus of abundance. As you think about abundance, we want to breathe deeply in through our nose, and then we'll exhale through our mouths on a 5 count. Here we go. Breathing in abundantly. Let's breathe in love. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll tilt our head back. We'll take in another deep breath. We'll hold it a bit long. And let's release any anxiety we're holding on to. Release it from our mouths in this moment. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Returning our head back to center. We're breathing naturally and normally. We're connecting with our bodies in this moment, realizing that we are enough and that we have enough. Let's prepare our minds and our hearts for a second communal breath. Breathing in deeply, joy through our nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We tilt our head back. We take in another deep breath. We hold it a bit longer this time. And let's release any self-doubt in our mind or our body. Let's release that from our mouths. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Returning our head back to center. We're breathing naturally and normally. We're preparing our minds and our hearts for our final communal breath. We're going to breathe in happiness through our nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We tilt our head back. We take in another deep breath. We hold it a bit longer, and let's release any fears. Any fears we're holding on to, release them from our mouths. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As we return our head back to center, we're breathing naturally and normally, centering our minds and our hearts on the thought of abundance. As there are so many distractions in our world, our mind tends to shift to deficit thinking. We tend to focus on the things that we don't have. In this moment, let us be filled with gratitude, reminding ourselves that happiness is not having what you want, it is wanting what you have. And that space of gratitude will serve as an antidote to anxiety, to stress, to even fear. Let us center our minds and our heart on abundance as we prepare for an amazing session. You can now feel the ground beneath your feet. You feel your lap beneath your hands. You'll welcome any noises in your area. And at this time, family, I'll invite you, when you're ready, willing, and able, to simply open your eyes. Okay, family, I hope that you feel as relaxed as I do. We are now ready to engage in an amazing session. Mindful moments are just that. They take anywhere between 1 minute to 3 minutes to simply focus you, to give you the mental and physical fortitude to navigate any emotional terrain that comes your way. So I'm ready for the next slide, and we'll jump right into our session. The way we want to begin today's session is really being able to identify our hopes and fears. Some of you have a journal, and some of us are able to just simply begin to jot down. You're going to get some helpful tools, and I don't want you to miss out. So right now, family, in your journals, I want you to begin the way that I begin many of my workshops with people all over the world, is I have them just simply identify their 3 most audacious wellness hopes. These are hopes that you wish for yourself, for your families, for the schools and the districts that you work in. As we confront the second wave of COVID-19, what are 3 audacious hopes that you have? Hopes are interesting because they can literally be a cornerstone to create the most amazing discoveries in our lives. But when we are sometimes boggled down with stress and anxiety, we forget that we can hope. And when we as adults forget we can hope, we forget to remind children that they can hope. So in the spirit of abundance and in the thoughts of gratitude, we want you to just simply for a moment reflect on 3 things that you are absolutely hopeful for. 1 thing for yourself, 1 aspect for your family, and 1 aspect for your school. I'll give you a moment to jot those down. I want you to be gentle with yourself as you identify these hopes, because many of us are not accustomed to really centering on our hopes. And for some of us, even thinking about and writing about our hopes causes anxiety. I want you to know that you're absolutely not alone, that these are natural and normal emotions that come up. So grant yourself some grace in this moment and just think about and write about your audacious hopes. And now that we've given you a bit of time to just kind of jot down some hopes, we want to be able to reflect on those hopes in a way that allows us to understand that there are absolutely some fears that might come up. And in thinking about and writing about our hopes, we want to be able to simply just draw a line right underneath our last hope. And we want to be able to identify our 3 deepest fears as we approach, confront, navigate the second wave of COVID-19, we like to identify a fear that we have for ourselves, a fear that we have for our family, and a fear that we have for our school or district. This is a tool so that we understand that there's a duality to our emotions. We understand just as we can reflect on hopes, we have to also be able to look at the fears so that we can create the necessary bridge of self-discovery, awareness, and awe. As we think about our hopes and fears, I'm giving you some intentional time to reflect. Again, checking in with your body. This is the key to mindfulness. Your body physiologically responds to stimuli of emotion, whether you perceive them as negative or positive. Some of us, when thinking about our hopes, we kind of felt a little bit light. We might have felt excited. For others of us, thinking about our hopes might have caused anxiety. Maybe our shoulders got a little tight, our palms got a little sweaty. Pay attention to what happens to your body as you think about and write about your hopes. And then also, in contrast, look at what happened with your body as you thought about and wrote about your fears. Did you notice anything come up that creates a pattern for you in your everyday life? The reason, family, why we center on ourselves first, family, and then our school community is because you are the common denominator of your life. You take you with you wherever you go. So it is super important for you to be able to understand that there is a direct relation between how you are perceiving life yourself emotionally and how and what you are projecting to others. So we want to teach you how to develop the self-awareness tools so that you can not only be self-aware, but you can begin to accept yourself so that you show yourself compassion. And we want to be able to build a culture of compassion. So in order to do this effectively, that will bring us to our next stage and phase. This is where we begin to deconstruct those fears. We're ready for the next slide? Now, in order to deconstruct these fears, we have to know that our fears present themselves as blockages or bridges. These fears can look like anxiety, or they can be major fears. Some of us have just journaled a fear that they themselves might contract COVID. Some of us have journaled that they fear that they might lose a loved one to COVID. When these fears come up, they come for a specific reason. They come to teach us a lesson. So I want you right now in your journal to really be able to reflect as you select your deepest fear. This is the deepest fear that you have for yourself, for your family, or your school community. I want you to be able to reflect, what lesson has this fear come to teach you personally and professionally? When we think about the lessons that we learn from fear, if we can perceive fear as a teacher, we're no longer mortified when we become afraid. We use that as fuel to get to know and understand ourselves a bit more. So I'll give you a moment to identify a lesson that fear has come to teach you personally and professionally. As you answer these questions, again, family, grant yourself some grace. Be gentle with yourself. Remember, self-compassion literally is your ability to be able to not only navigate the emotions as they come, but to actually accept them as part of your experience. You want to get to the point where you appreciate and accept every piece of you, the good, the bad, and the pieces that you don't want to show anyone. I'm on this call today because I'm extending the love that I have for you so that you know that you are enough, that you have enough, that you are worthy and you are worth it. So as you think about what lessons fear has come to teach you, think about what you have learned about yourself. So if you had a fear that you would lose a loved one to COVID, how does this change the way you interact with them? How does this change the amount of time that you really spend in focused attention and awareness when you're in their presence? What are you learning about yourself personally? If you are fearing that you might lose a coworker, or if you've lost a coworker, how does this change the way you interact meaningfully with your coworkers? What are you learning about how you navigate professionally? Some of us are thinking perhaps we're not going to sweat the small stuff. that we're going to be present when we are there so that we can hear with our hearts and not just wait for a response. We want to be intentional about the lessons that we learn from fear so that we can break down barriers and create bridges. Lastly, family, as we think about deconstructing fears, the third and final step is probably one of the most critical steps. This is an actionable step. What are you committed to do when fear arises next time? This is when you remind yourself that fear is a natural part of life, that there's not a matter of whether it's going to show up or not. We absolutely know fears are going to come and go. But now, what are you committed to do to ensure that you have an action ready in place to combat these fears? Think deeply. I'm going to give you a moment to jot down some things that you naturally probably already do, or even from the Student Institute, you've learned techniques that you can now use to combat some of these fears when they arise. For some of us, it might be yoga. For others of us, it might just be mindfully breathing, taking a walk, listening to music, connecting with family. What are some things that you do, or a thing that you're committed to do the next time fear shows up for you? Take a moment and reflect. And family, as you're writing, I want you to connect with your body. Remember, this is a mind and body connection. Mindfulness says that I'm going to be present with my mind, but my body is absolutely physiologically responding to the stimuli that is coming through. So pay attention to what's happening to your body as you think about and write about what you're committed to do. Action-oriented steps. A lot of people believe that contentment just means you're going to kind of settle in and there's no action involved. But to be truly content means that you are going to actively seek your well-being. And to do that, you have to be ready to confront those things that are sometimes uncomfortable. And that's that idea of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. The purpose of this session and deconstructing these fears so that you build self-compassion is really to develop the psychological flexibility needed to navigate not just COVID-19 or the social justice issues that are plaguing our entire globe,